Hey there folks, and welcome to the second video for Chapter 19, the Evolution of Vertebrate Diversity. Alright, so we've established all the other members of Chordata, from hagfish and lampreys all the way up through mammals. But I know what you're thinking. We're humans. We want to know about us. Well, before we can get to human lineage, we need to get to our closest relatives. These, ladies and gentlemen, are your closest cousins, the primates. Primates include apes, humans, as well as Old and New World monkeys, and they're defined by certain particular characteristics. They have a certain set of skills. Primates are known to have short snouts, so our faces tend to be very flat. Our eyes are much closer together than other animals, and they're on the front of our heads. They're on the front of our faces, which tells us that we at least have some ability to hunt. This is what helps give us binocular vision, so we have depth perception. We have limber shoulder and hip joints that lets us really move around. It's what lets us walk upright, at least some of the time. We have 5 fingers and toes, and we even have opposable thumbs. Opposable means that the joint of the thumb faces the opposite direction of the rest of the fingers, so that you can fold over the palm. You can make a fist, hold on to things, make tools, and use them. All right. It also includes this group also includes anthropoids, which are the section of primates that include monkeys and apes and have that opposable thumb. And apes specifically, things like gibbons, orangutans, chimpanzees, and gorillas, as well as humans. Again, before we can get into us, let's first understand who we're looking at and where they come from. There are 3 major branches to primate evolution. The lorises, potos, and lemurs, which are found in South America and tropical Africa. The tarsiers and their relatives, which are found in areas in Asia. And then we get into the anthropoids, which we were just discussing. Old and New World monkeys, gibbons, and then the apes. Alright, so gibbons are including the apes. So gibbons, orangutans, gorillas, chimpanzees, which maybe only differ from humanity by 1% of our DNA. Think about that. There's 1% of all of our DNA that's really different between humans and chimpanzees. We are that similar if you compare our DNA. Awesome. All right, this is where we came from evolutionarily. These are our evolutionary siblings. And all the way back here is the ancestral primate who, evolutionary speaking, would be the sort of the parent on this evolutionary tree that eventually, over time, gave rise to all of these branches of primate diversity. When we focus in on humans and our evolution, we're looking at a branch of study called paleoanthropology. It's a bit of a mouthful, I know, but what the name breaks down to is it's basically the study of really old human beings. Anthropology is a science that studies ancient civilizations, the evolution of human culture, tools, and our spread over the earth. Paleoanthropology is all of this over truly ancient time, even including stages of human development and the evolutionary stages that led up to human beings so old that were based on fossilized remains. And the groups of species that are included in paleoanthropology are called the hominins. That is human beings, Homo sapiens, that is our scientific name, as well as members of the other 3 closest members to us in evolution. These are members of the hominoids, which share even more DNA in common with Homo sapiens than chimpanzees do. So these are the Ardipithecus group, the Australopithecus group, and the Paranthropus group. One of the major differences between human beings and one of those groups that we have the best amount of fossils for is between Homo erectus, which is very similar to Homo sapiens, and Australopithecus, in this case Australopithecus afarensis. Homo sapiens and Homo erectus walk upright. They are completely bipedal, and they have larger brains. And Homo sapiens even has a larger brain than Homo erectus. But Australopithecus is one of the first places where we see some of the major adaptations that separate the hominins from chimpanzees, our other closest evolutionary relative. See, the two major things that really define modern-day human beings is that we are bipedal, we only walk on two legs, and we have larger brains than all of the other apes. Australopithecus, which is a fairly early hominin, walked upright. So as we can see, this is a clearly bipedal skeleton, but did not have as large a brain as Homo erectus or Homo sapiens. The size of the Australopithecus brain is intermediate between the chimpanzee and the other hominins. So this is a good transition stage, at least for brain size, although they've already clearly evolved into bipedal walking, not walking on all fours. Part of the major advantage of having a larger brain is that it made human beings, Homo sapiens, more intelligent. And that intelligence affected our ability to socialize with others, to really form very complex social relationships. But it also affected our ability to learn, to plan, to make tools, and use them. And these skills enabled our evolutionary ancestors to spread all over the world from Africa outwards. We know we started in Africa because we can compare the DNA of existing modern-day human beings all over the world and compare where we get human beings whose DNA is more derived and it's changed more over time from other human beings. And we know that there's a core set of genes that holds in common with even ancient Homo sapiens gene pools from Africa, but that we have other adaptations, other genotypes that are shared between Homo sapiens that radiated out, that left Africa, ancient Africa, and spread into what is now modern-day North America, Europe, Asia, and South America. Occasionally, however, we still get surprises. Allow me to introduce you to Homo floresiensis. Homo floresiensis, H. floresiensis, is a bit of a mystery. We're not quite sure where this hobbit-sized hominid came from. Well, we know where we find it. We find their remains on the Indonesian island of Flores, which is where their species name comes from. And they are truly tiny. This, for instance, is a modern-day human skull, Homo sapiens. This is the skull and skeleton of H. floresiensis, and this is what a reconstruction of their face would be like with the muscle and the skin added back on. They are truly tiny. Even the adult skeletons we've been able to find are practically child-sized compared to Homo sapiens. But there are many different hypotheses about how we ended up with these species. Were they a dwarf species of hominid? That happens. We know it happens on islands, depending on the correct conditions. It's a known thing. It's even called the island effect. Or did they have a particular genetic effect that made them small, that maybe affected their health? We're still trying to find out more about this species. There's a lot we don't know, just because of how many fossils we can find on this very small island and what kind of condition those fossils are in. It limits how thorough a study we can run So we're still trying to play catch up with this species so we can better understand it. One adaptation we do understand very well, though, and is a result of our spreading around the world, however, is skin tone. Skin tone is an adaptation based on where that local population of humans settled on the planet. In areas that receive a lot of sunlight, especially in the tropics, getting enough vitamin D is not a major concern because there's tons of sun most of the year round. However, because there's so much sun, UV damage does become a major concern, and this is why populations of human beings that have spent a long time living and breeding in the tropics tend to have darker skin. There's more melanin in their skin. Melanin is a pigment that causes darker shades of brown in human skin. It protects the skin, and thus the human being, from UV damage that can cause skin cancer. And it's a good adaptation against skin cancer and UV radiation. And it persists in those areas because even though it cuts down on how much vitamin D the body will absorb, these people have been living in areas where there's tons of sunlight. And again, getting enough vitamin D is not a problem. Avoiding skin cancer and UV damage is. In far northern and southern latitudes, however, way away from the tropics in either direction, but especially in higher latitudes, from 0 to like 23, 25 degrees upward, you have the flip side of this. There's not nearly as much sunlight to go around. These are areas that will spend all of winter in the dark, where summer is very, very brief. And so getting enough sunlight to really produce enough vitamin D is in fact a major health concern. The same way that too much sunlight can damage the body through UV radiation and cause major health problems, getting not enough vitamin D can also cause major health problems. And so you see a very different skin color adaptation to help the body absorb more sunlight, make more vitamin D, because at that point, at those latitudes, it's the other way around. Now getting vitamin D is the big health concern. And you don't worry about too much UV radiation because there's hardly enough sunlight in the first place. This is where we tend to get much, much less melanin. You don't have to protect the skin from radiation, at least not as much, not nearly as much. But you need to be sensitive to sunlight so you can make enough vitamin D to support the body in good health. And this is where we get very, very fair-skinned people. All right? The idea of race, and I know this is a sensitive topic, the idea of race based on skin tone is just a social thing. It's something that people made up to make people seem more different. There is no real biological basis for different races because it's all just an adaptation based on where you've lived. Skin color, eye color, hair color, and even hair texture all play into how much sunlight is there where many generations have been living and what adaptations are supported by natural selection so that the people that live there over time are better suited to continue living there. That's all it is. This is not to say, however, that we understand absolutely everything about animal diversity. Like H. floresiensis, there's things we still discover that we don't have a complete understanding of yet. We are still even discovering new species of other animals all over the world. Well, discovery has slowed down. We are not done. Back in the medieval era of Europe, we thought there were all kinds of weird, monstrous animals walking around. We even marked our maps with things like, "Here be monsters" and "Here be dragons." Not just because we just didn't know what was over there, but because sometimes we really thought there were monsters over on that barely understood, not yet well explored area. We may not have quite that much unknown territory left, but we still find new diversity. And for biology geeks like yours truly, that's actually wonderful. it means that we are still not discovering everything. There's still something new to find. And one of the beautiful things about studying biology is, honestly, there is always something new to learn. You will never need to worry about becoming bored because you've just run out of things to be fascinated in. All right, folks, that's going to wrap it up for Chapter 19, and I will see you next time. Bye.